Welcome back to the UK2 podcast. On today's show, we have Tony Edwards on the show. Tony Edwards is the host of the Change Your Perception podcast, the Change Your Perception Instagram page with over 1 million followers for amazing reason. He's providing a lot of value in this world, and I'm more than excited to have you here, Tony. So for those who may not be aware of who you are, can you give us a brief rundown of what you're all
Man,
about?
pleasure's all mine. I'm Tony Edwards from Chicago, Illinois. Currently residing in San Antonio, Texas. Living a good life, love it out here, hill country. But I got a company, Sageit Media Group LLC, where I have numerous accounts in that we provide spirituality, mindfulness, mental health awareness, just a spiritual space. So have changed perception, the bigger account, the father account, but I also have Alchemic Healing, Geek Thugger, and Herbs Over Meds, and a couple of other ones, but yeah, our whole ecosystem is dealing with spirituality in life and creating, content creation. And, I love what what I do. I'm one with it, most happy guy around. So
Absolutely, and happy birthday as well. I know that it was
appreciate it.
yesterday.
Yeah,
I'm
appreciate it, bro.
Absolutely, man. And what even like, because I feel for a lot of people when you get into whether it's mental health, spirituality, mindfulness, these kind of like places in life, there's something that happened prior that kind of pushed you down that path.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Back in I would say, you know who Terrence McKenna is?
I feel like if I seen him, yes, but not off top.
Well, Terrence McKenna, I'll take it. Back in 2014, I kind of left the traditional job. I was a pipe fitter, like getting paid pretty good money, general foreman, doing that type of work, but just kind of getting tired of that lifestyle. I get bored easily with learning new trades and new skill sets, and when it's capped out, I'm ready to do something else, ready to move on to something else. I consider that growth. But anyway, I kind of left the workplace back in 2014, had out my own real estate, so I was able to chill and live in one of my buildings, and and kind of reflect on life and see the direction that I was going in. So, I took 5 grams of mushrooms, and haven't been the same since, man. Back in 2015, I kind of went through a little midlife crisis, and just questioning a lot of things. And
Mhm.
I would say from that forth, it's just kind of catapulted my life into the direction I'm going right now, and I haven't turned around since. I had to face some realities, face some truths that, uh, unlearn some things that I thought was the right path, and question a lot of things. Question a lot of things in life. And once I started doing that, I really haven't, I haven't turned back since. And I feel this is the course, this is the life. This is the life I've chosen. Like I wouldn't want to be doing anything else right now. Because it's exponential growth in everything I do. And I'm so grateful to be in this position in life. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought up the perspective of unlearning because that's what this whole podcast, like the mission for it is help people unlearn. Cause I feel, especially in life, we're trying to learn more. Like school, college, where we're taught that we need to learn new things. But I think it's more about unlearning what we needed,
Absolutely.
what we thought was the way. What did that experience with mushrooms, how did that shift your perspective into the world now you're in today?
And I still, I still do microdose. I still microdose shrooms, but it it really just made me look at life totally different. It brings a different perspective. Psilocybin is said to be the first organism that we all come from.
Hmm.
That we all have have our total essence or being from. With the trees and with nature. So I think it gives you it gave me a different perspective upon the perspective that I've already had, and unlocked a lot of thought processes, or a lot of blinded space. It got rid of that. You I became more clearer
Mm.
and more clear on, even, being a victim or blaming someone else for, your struggle or where you're at in life, or, you know, the war is me mentality, or having the mindset to be like someone is holding you back,
Mhm.
whether spiritually, mentally, physically. Someone has some type of hold on you and it's causing you to be in your low vibrational or digressive state. And when I learned that and I took responsibility myself, whether it was somebody's fault or whatever, you know, when you take that strength back, I think that's what mushrooms showed me, is that, hey, it's all on you. This life is all on you. It's a frequency. We're a waveform, and that whatever waveform we choose to be that's the waveform we are. That's the waveform we partake of. And so from that standpoint there, I just, it's been just growing. I don't, when I talk to people, it may sound like I'm bragging, but I'm really not. It's just I'm just grateful to be, you know, you put forth something in life, and you're able to see that this is what's developing from it. It's like you want to cultivate it more, and you're constantly in a state of cultivating, being better. Living a life of longevity, efficiency, sustainability. Everything around you is, or around myself is like tethered to that type of mindset. So, it's much more that's a lot of words, but it's so much more I can say in regards to it. I just don't have the words to formulate it, but I think that's an earful, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely. I'm grateful that you brought in the perspective of, at least this is the way that I see it, is it can be someone else's fault, but it's still my responsibility. It's kind of like the perspective that I take, and I live through that, because I think for a lot of us, it is that victim mentality of life's happening to me, life's happening to me. And the reason
Hmm.
I said prior to this was like my perception was the thing that changed my life, was changing my perception from life is happening to me to life is happening for me. It made me ask a question, start seeking out that of how it was happening for me. And a lot of self-improvement books and stuff like that really came into account when it comes to like your frequency, your vibration that you give off, and how you really show up in the world. Was there any books or anything that you came across outside of psilocybin that kind of sparked that for you?
Man, the one you got back there, Think and Grow Rich, and also The Power of the Subconscious Mind by, I think it was
Joseph Murray.
Joseph Murray.
Mhm.
That book there really just changed my whole perspective on, what are you giving your thoughts to? What are you allowing, the things you have control with, your thoughts you have control with? What are you giving? What are you allowing? You're becoming who you're being. We are the beer. It's like we are the thing that there is no lack. Is we are that thing we want to be. And
Mhm.
it may be it may be a far fetched mentality or far fetched mindset, but I think the thing is the value is grasping that concept and taking the time it take to cultivate that as part of your life and part of your identity. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So it's easy to regress back into that, that easy flow in life to just become a victim. To be like, hey, I'm this way because, I'll be, I mean, we could name that, we could name situations all throughout life, but when you take ownership and responsibility and be like, hey, I'm at where I'm at, this is, I have what I have, and I'm doing the best of what I can do my best with, and regardless of how people see me or how the situation may be, there is a different existence. There is a different understanding. Just not grasping the concept of that right now, but it's there. You know, the thing I understand in life is that when you decide to change, or when you decide to go down a different path, change happens right away. The environment's still the same, but the environment of your mentality and the environment of the essence of you happens a certain way. You have to cultivate that. You have to water that. You have to take that seriously. I think that's a thing that, in this day and age, especially with society now, and the internet is, people always want the easy way out. They want that dopamine feeling of being a victim. They want that action of being like feeling justified for their life to be the way it is, but it don't have to be.
It definitely doesn't. And in the perspective of like there's another essence, there's another, it's like we have a who we see ourselves as, and then there's who we actually are. And that discrepancy is where most people get lost because they see themselves as a different kind of person, of noticing that they are already whole and complete. When did
Mm.
that kind of shift happen for you, and how did that kind of unravel into the life that you create today?
Man, I would say it happens around the same time, around 2015. Uh, and it was just that you get more, fulfillment in life when you have an expectation of yourself
Mm.
than you have expectation of others. And when you constantly uh, letting yourself be putting yourself in an inferior position or that victim position, when you really realize that, hey, I'm being inferior or I'm being the victim, like I'm putting myself in this position, then you don't want no parts of that any longer. We're born into like as a victim, like a victim mentality. You think about a baby when it comes out of the womb, they constantly crying. They want, somebody got to give them something. Somebody has to feed them something. Somebody has to change their environment, change their pamper to make them comfortable. It's like we're into that, into that mentality, and to pull yourself from that and understand that, hey, I was born into that, but I don't have to choose to keep going down that direction. You take responsibility for your life, every aspect of it. Don't blame the government, don't blame taxes, don't blame whoever's president. It's just grab your own environment and create it. And that's my mentality. And to answer your question, yeah, I cultivated that mentality back since 2015.
Got you. It is something that it's a role that we play. It's a position that we take on, mostly unconsciously, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you feel that that first step for most people that, they're not really deep into this kind of mindset or perspective in life? How do they take on that perspective? What's that first step into increasing their consciousness?
I think the first step is, you got to question yourself. Why do I believe the things I believe? Why do I decide to be this person? Why do I decide to identify with this or that? Why do I let these same limiting thoughts uh, consume the majority of my day or the majority of my life? You know, you have to start with that. You have to start with, with asking yourself, like, what if you can be your best self? What does it take to be your best self? And are you willing to position yourself to be that best self? And understand that, forget the shortcuts. It takes the time it takes. It takes the time it takes. We're a thing of nature. We're a part of this cosmos. We move fluently, and in the subtle aspects, people got to learn about the subtle aspects, like these subtle energies. When you make these choices, when you decide to change, in the subtleness part of you, you have to cultivate that. Don't worry about what's going on around you. And I mean, that's easier said than done. We have grief. Lose loved ones. War and people financial situation. But hey, I have to find a way to grasp that, embrace every aspect, because you live in that's life, and then choose to move from there and make the best of it. Yeah, I think that's the key. You got to question yourself. You got to unlearn some things. Ask yourself, why are you this type of person, or you have these type of beliefs. You have to challenge your beliefs. That, I think that's where you start, because you can't worry about what others are thinking or doing. You have to make this about yourself, and then from that, as you become a quality person, you water others to become that quality person. So it starts with you. It starts with our everyday thinking, everyday being.
Absolutely. That curiosity is something that is in every successful person. They're curious. They
Mhm.
question things. Where did that curiosity come from for you?
Mm. Man, I had a background. I used to be a Christian. Like, I did prison ministry, was a diehard Christian. So, I would say I've exhausted the Bible, like trying to understand and trying to, figure it out. But, it led me to other things. I'm no longer a Christian, but I'm grateful for what it taught me. But what was your question again? Because I want to make sure I answer that.
Yeah. Question was where is that curiosity within you come from?
Well, yeah, I've always wanted to learn. I've always wanted to understand. So it's I want to know what exists, what what's there to understand.
Mhm.
I don't like I don't like mediocreness, like just accepting. Like the someone that just accepts life and just figure out that's life. It's so much. It's such a big world, such a huge world, so many different cultures, so many different understandings, and being growing up in the city, you grow up on these blocks. And on these blocks, you're in a certain area code, and then when you're in that area code, you're just in that certain vicinity, and usually people born get become alive, be born in that situation, and die in those same vicinities. And then when you start seeing others or other aspects of life or people living differently, you know, you, you start to want to live differently. And then you find out it's available for you also. But I think that's the main thing, hanging around different cultures, different just different environments, and it makes you question, why am I so glued to this environment? Why am I so glued to this culture? What is culture? Culture is something you make. You can make a new culture, you can create a new experience, but it's a big world. So that's what really made me curious to, to be more open. And then I read a lot. I read a lot of books, man. A lot of books. Books on business, books on self help. It's a lot of redundant same sayings, but repetition is king. So eventually it gets down within you, and you start living it. So
Yeah, it's very true. A lot of people will say that, self improvement after a while it gets old. It's the same kind of stuff, but it's like repeti- repetition of it is what compounds over time. It's a snowball
absolutely,
effect in both ways. And
absolutely.
and I'm glad that you brought in that perspective too, because I grew up area code, blocks, and that was exactly what
Hmm.
my question was. I know I'm seeing a lot of people end up in the same place here and live their entire life here, but I'm also seeing other people across the world doing astounding things that was once seen as that wasn't possible, and then they did
Hmm.
it, and then it seemed possible. And so I thought the same realm was like, why would I ever settle? It's an
Absolutely,
unsettling existence at that point. Where
absolutely, man.
has a manifestation played out in your life, and how has it played out in your life?
Man, I think in every aspect, bro. I look at it like that. That's why I protect my thoughts, because
Mhm.
I I manifest. I am the manifester. I know it's me manifesting. So, in every situation, we are the manifestors. Our thought patterns, our way of life, the things that we continually focus on, you know, we're manifesting it. So, I've really learned to control my focus in a certain realm of understanding, and letting certain I don't let certain things within uh my realm of understanding. Like, I just don't have time for it, but I really want to put things in my frame of reference that I want to give time to. And I think that's been the key for me, is just watching what goes in your eye gates and ear gates, and limiting things that you don't want no part of. It's just so easy to get caught up in toxicity, with this toxic world, getting caught up in gossip, and it's just flourishing with it. So I think the key thing is just watch your focus, watch what you bring into your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like boundaries, like creating boundaries in your
Absolutely.
life. It's the lens I like to see it through is like the power of proximity. Like instead of surrounding yourself with people that are talking all complaints and this is why and this is
Hmm.
because, all of that is stuff that you shouldn't allow into your, like you said, eye gates and ear gates. And it's like that kind of stuff is what needs to be eliminated. How do you start building those boundaries to start surrounding yourself with people that are where you'd like to be?
And I think it start with, another word is goals, but you have to have a goal, have goals for your life. You have to have those parameters. You have to have those parameters before you. If something is important in your life or a way of being is important in your life, you have to put that before you daily. You have to make that your priority. Or not, you just if not, you're just gonna be right back into the rigmarole, right back into the swing of things. And next thing you know, 3 or 6 months have went by and you just saying the same thing over and over again that I'm gonna do. But if you put that those non-negotiable ways of being and non-negotiable ways of identifying a newness with yourself, if you put that before you on a daily and you basically worship that, put that thing at the first and foremost and worship that thing daily, you become it. If not, you're just gonna be in the sway of things and caught up in this and caught up in that, and that's an unstable person. That's an unstable foundation. You know,
Yeah. That is manifestation in itself, right? It's putting
absolutely,
forth what you want in your life right in front of you every single day. That's the focus. That's the
absolutely.
intention. I think for a lot of people, and this might be a contrarian like perspective, but I feel as though when you take on that thing and you focus on the thing that you want so much, it almost creates an inferiority complex.
Mm.
How is that kind of, what was your perspective on that? How did you shift your perspective around that, if that makes sense?
I mean, it's just you know, I mean, we are it, when you're in a new environment, or you choose to be identified with something new, you will become inferior because this is a big new place for you. It's a where you wasn't consistent before. Now you have determined to be consistent. Where you weren't disciplined before, you've determined to be disciplined.
Hmm.
And it may seem like feel stupid, and because it's like, man, it's I can never reach this point. But you just have to be consistent. Consistency is the key with anything, with everything. I mean, that's with making money, with fitness goals, with whatever. It's you have to be consistent. And that consistency starts with, once again, going back to focusing. It's all focusing, having your insights there, having your matrix there, like your metrics there, like you know, watching every penny. I know it may sound like us so much, but it's necessary, fixing your bed, straighten your bed once you get up, it's necessary, So yeah, I can see after the first month you feeling inferior to those type of things, but as you grow and you grow into it, it's just gonna be a part of life, and it's gonna be like, this is just what I do. This is just who I am. This is who I decide to be. What's next? You know?
You build up the identity of that kind of person through proof. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, right?
Absolutely,
When
absolutely.
you talk about that, there's a perspective there that I feel is important to touch on. When a lot of people, like you said earlier in this podcast, is like we're in an era of instant dopamine, instant pleasure, like just at our fingertips at every second. How do we develop that focus and also gain that clarity on our goals? Because there's so many things that we can do in the world now.
Man, that's a great question, man. You know, you have to know what's leading you astray first.
Mm.
You have to keep it honest with yourself. You got to keep it real with yourself. You have to be truthful to yourself. And when you're truthful to yourself, you don't lie to yourself. You can work in harmony with yourself. You got to really look at things that's is disharmonic in your life. What's not, what's constantly causing you to stray away, and fix those things, and even the people you hang around, you know, who's pulling you down, who's influencing you the most. Like you hanging around those people, they influence you, whether you know it or not. And I'm not saying just cut everybody off, but sometimes you have to, you know. I mean, even do a quick sabbatical, separate yourself for 3 months and see if that makes a difference. So all these things, man, it's just it's all just about you have to be willing to position yourself. You have to see where you're at and reposition yourself. And, it's just and stay consistent. Even when it gets tough. And it's not necessarily. I mean, this. I'm not telling everybody to be fit or be whatever, but if you start to walk down those paths of being fit or just doing some type of mode of workout or being disciplined with your finances in some area, it'll grow. But you have to start. You have to start, and you have to be honest with yourself and say, "Man, this is not working. I have to do something different." And at that moment, you have to add something new to your arsenal of doing something different. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable to be a better person.
Absolutely. It has to be your zone of genius is stepping out of that. And I'm really grateful that you brought that perspective in. And I feel though there's a there's a part of that where for a lot of people it's tough to start. Obviously. It's one of the biggest hurdles that we have is getting started. What was your perspective when you did start stepping into this kind of space and how did it play out?
That's a great question, man. I think the thing is that really got me to start is that I started writing it down when I said I wanted to do something. Like if I had a goal, I want to do that. I'll write it down, date it, time, and look at the time. I put a time on it also that when I thought it, the day it was, and the time it was.
Mhm.
And I started to do that so much with everything. And then I'll find that piece of paper like 6 months from 6 months later. It's like, I didn't do any of that, and it's like 6 months have passed and I didn't start on that. So what I started doing is I got a chart where I write down all the things that's necessary, everything I need to be doing. And I started not necessarily making myself do it, but show that I put it here for this month, and next month, did I do anything with that? So I might not do anything with it that first month, but when I get it to the next one, it's like, hey, I got to get at least 3 of those in a week. So I got to at least start. And then when you look at your progressions of doing those things, then you kind of regress and reflect, and you see, I'm glad I started, because it's not nothing's going to get done until you start. And I think the thing is, people fool themselves by because they talk about it, they'll say, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. They get themselves all revved up, and
Mhm.
all that rah rah, revving up puts you in a position where you're fooling yourself. You know, Goes back to what I said earlier. The first thing is you have to be truthful to yourself. You
Mhm.
can't lie to yourself. Like, you got people around, you got tons of people already lying to themselves and lying to you. You got to be truthful to yourself. You know what I mean? You gotta, that's where it starts. You have to, really take account of what's going on, and what are you doing in life? Who are you becoming? A phrase I like to also with starting also that I like to tell myself all the time, or I tell others all the time. Today is the youngest you'll ever be.
Mhm.
It's this the youngest you'll ever be. Like, so
You gotta have
it's
some
not
urgency.
if not now, when?
Yep.
Don't fool yourself. You know,
It's very true. It's very true. And as you spoke on that, like you have to be truthful to yourself and you have to be in alignment is like kind of the perspective. How do people start building the self-awareness to understand what is in alignment and what doesn't feel right?
mm, takes time. It's not a, it's not just a one thing, but I think it just you have to get serious with yourself. You just got to do a self analysis. You have to really look at yourself as you really have to break down and look at every aspect of yourself and, question everything, and you're not going to be able to change it all, but you have to pick at least, 3 things a month that you're going to change, that you're going to do, and that's where it starts. And layering on top of that consistency, and more things bloom from that, more aspects become available, but you have to first start with those aspects. You have to first get serious with life, you know, really like get serious with life. What else is there to do? Work someone else's dream all your life.
Yeah.
What good is that? You have so much talent, you have so much ability, creativity, and some people are not creative, but I think everybody has something that they really want to do. I think you should do that. You should do that wholeheartedly. And that starts with doing analysis of yourself. And breaking it down, and and seizing the day, carpe diem. You know,
It's so true. It's so true. I like to see it as like change is a decision before it's a process. Like you have to decide to make a change because that's the biggest hurdle is just deciding to do it. Because once you
mm-hmm.
decided, it's like it's a declaration. It's like okay, I'm dependent on this is a decision I already made, and I feel for a lot of people, it's the hurdle of staying consistent. It's the hurdle of getting started. It's the hurdle of figuring out what feels right for them, and so many others. For you, it's like I feel like there's some kind of trust that you have with the universe, with like things are going to move in your favor, and that perspective is something that's really, really strong. How have you been able to develop that, and how can people start developing that? Because I feel a lot of people are in a place of scarcity.
Yeah. Once again, it takes time, man. It takes time. It's all about what you put into your mental. What do you put into in your sphere of influence? Who you becoming? What are you focusing on? It's all about changing your focus, man. I mean, it's just changing your focus and locking in, and understand that consistency is hard. Discipline is hard. Like it's all hard. Like this is all hard. But you gotta ask yourself, do you want to be developed, or you just want to just because you're gonna do something hard. Everything's hard.
Mhm.
Being undisciplined is hard. Just just don't show up as much, until months later. And it costs way more. So it's all hard. Not being consistent is hard. You know, not changing your focus is hard. You know, looking at unnecessary Netflix. I mean, there's some good stuff on Netflix, but looking at unfruitful stuff is that stuff is easy. It's hard to walk away from that. But gotta understand is can't want it easy. Want it to be hard. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and everybody's not. You know, so either you
Yeah.
choose to be a doer or complainer.
Yeah. And the perspective I take and is like a saying that I just continuously reiterate on is that life is simple. It's not easy. It's like we often know the things that we need to do. It's simple. It's
Hmm.
straightforward. But often the things that are the simplest to do are also the simplest not to do. And that's where the hurdle comes in. You can tell that you've spoken on it a bunch is like the consistency is a big aspect. The mindset's obviously just formed over time. But what are the less obvious reasons that you found success?
Hmm. It's a great question. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know that when you got me with that.
Got you. I got you.
Yeah, but I'm not sure, man. I don't know. It's just, it's I think the thing is everything in life is just we overcomplicate everything.
Yep.
But it is simple. It's just not easy. It's just, because know, doing something that's successful, it takes hard work. It's just, I don't know, man. I just love you gotta love the process. The only way to love the process of anything is you gotta be loving to do what you're doing. you know. And then when you're in that realm, it's just it's almost like you're in a bubble. You know, you're in a bubble of your being, and anything in life, the ebb and flows in life, the ups and downs in life is it's like you're in this bubble, you're in this flow, you're in this frequency. It's like it all matters, it's all relevant. You know, it's just part of it's part of the greater, you know, the greater being of the being of things, or the greater calling of things. So, you know, it's kind of hard to gauge, you know, it's kind of hard to gauge the aspects of it, but it's just look at everything as beautiful. Beautiful. You just as long as you're being a better person, you're making the right decisions, or you're trying to make the right decisions, or you're aware of wrong decisions you make that you got to do better. That's all that matters, man. You know,
So
and
true.
the thing is, you can't really, you know, I don't like comparing. You know, I say if you compare down. Like, hey, to compare down, to be grateful. Like, hey, man, I have this home, I have this situation. You know, comparing up, you know, I don't think when you compare up, I don't think that's a good thing. I think you can admire the people that's up, but then you look back in your life and say, okay, how can I be my best in that arena? You know, so I mean, it's all just, man, it's all relevant, man. It's all, you know, life is relevant, man. It's just, you know, I guess it's just the duality of things, you know, seeing it for what it is and appreciating where you're at, you know, loving every aspect of it. You
Yeah.
know,
The mindset of like there's no good or there's no it's not good or bad. It's just whatever you decide it to be, really, at the end of the day.
it's what it is. You know what I mean? You know, the Bible says, it, I remember, I think it says, it's like it rains on the just as well as the unjust,
Mhm.
meaning that, I mean, it's just life. Like, you know, just appreciate it, take it for what it is, you know, try to get the best from it, you know, try to understand more, you know, but don't worry, don't fear it. It's just, it's part of life. It's relevant. It's happening. It's in your midst. It's relevant. What can you get from it? What understanding can you gain? I think that's the thing, man. When instead of having that, like, war is me, why is this happening? Why you can't, you know, you can still ask why, but at the same time, you got to learn to appreciate, you know, have that
So
level of
true.
appreciation.
Gratitude's the powerhouse for just positive psychology. Like of any successful and purposeful and meaningful life, you find gratitude in the journey.
Absolutely.
There's no next point. A book that I really like that you kind of touched on was like the compare down kind of perspective. There's a book called The Gap and the Gain, which
Mm,
talks a little bit about that, where a lot of people they're in this position of they're comparing themselves in a gap. So they're comparing themselves off of they're in the middle and they're comparing themselves off of where they want to be instead of where they once were. And the gain is where they
mhm,
once were, comparing themselves off of that perspective. And when
mm,
you come from there, you come from a way more positive and just more
absolutely.
intentional kind of perspective on life.
Absolutely.
If you could have a billboard and it was yours, what would you say on it?
Mm. Change. Just change, man. Like, be okay with change. You know, change is good. You know, just change. You know, maybe under there in smaller print, and appreciate things in life. Appreciate where you're at in life. You know, appreciate the journey.
Mhm.
You know, stop wanting it so different. What do you have right now? What do you have? What can you appreciate and cultivate right now? Whether it's abilities, you know, whatever it is. What do you have to cultivate right now? You know, so
Yeah, it's needed. It's needed. I mean, like there's always going to be something next that we want to accomplish or something more that we can have or we can do.
all the time, man. It's not going anywhere. That next level is not. You never. Once you get there, it's like it's
What's
the
next?
next. It jumps right up. You have to
Yeah.
reflect, man. I think reflect. I spend a lot of time reflecting, man. Like,
Mm,
reflection is huge, you know, because you're always one that next move. But it's like, hey, look how far I've come.
Yeah.
Like, look where I'm at. Look, that's why it's important to, like, I do a lot of voice journaling, like, where
Makes sense.
when I go hiking, I'm actually gonna start putting them on my podcast actually too. But
Hell yeah.
I do them for my own personal journaling. How I'm feeling, how life is, what the positive, the negatives, all of that. And then when I go back, like, and I hear that like a month later, I always tell myself like, "Hey man, you're doing great, man. I love you." You know what I mean? And when I go back and reflect and hear those again, so much it gives me so much encouragement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think reflecting on your accomplishments or uh like how far you've come in life is key. Because what else you gonna gauge it by? You got to gauge it by your footprints that you left behind, the person that you used to be, you know, and to the person you become or becoming.
I'm so glad that you brought that perspective in. Voice memos, I've been doing them very frequently.
Oh man, nice.
Going on walks and doing the exact same thing as you, just giving myself words of affirmation, talking about how I'm feeling, what's going on today, what's going on yesterday, or what are my wins, what can I be grateful for, what can I be
Yeah,
uh just excited for. So many of those things that just give you, it's again, like we said earlier, it's like it's training your focus to focus on things that
absolutely.
you want to focus on, that support you and don't suppress you at the end of the day.
Man, you're the first person I heard that actually does that.
Oh,
I always tell people to do it. You're like, oh man, that's not a bad idea. But
every day,
yeah,
man, every day.
that's what's up, man. Got to show mine now. I just did one today. Yep. Then I have one right there. Let's see. I still got to resume.
Yes, sir.
So but
Yeah.
yeah, did 17 minutes today. But yeah, man, that's important, man. That's so important, man. You're your greatest, you're your greatest advocate in your life. So why not, tell yourself the positive thing, see how you feel about yourself, how you was feeling those days, and then listen to it. It's like, oh man, I was feeling that way. I was down and I was
Hmm.
worried about that situation. But look at this now. Like, you know, the contract came through or the deal came through or, it didn't come through and I'm totally off of that now. I'm doing this. I'm glad it didn't come, so it's a treat to yourself, man.
It really is. I see it as like from the moment you're born to the moment you die, the one person that you're going to be with throughout the entire life is you.
Mm,
And there's this, like I said earlier, it's like there's you and then there's who you think you are. Most people live their life based on who they think they are, and that
mm.
stops them from achieving a life that they want.
Man, it's powerful. That is so true, man.
It,
That is so
it's
true.
it's the one of my favorite books of all time is Psycho-Cybernetics. When I work with clients, it's literally I before we even hop on our first call, they have to start reading it because it's that important to me.
Man, you know what? I've downloaded that audiobook, but I've been saying I want to read it. I know, man. I got
You gotta, you
I'm gonna
gotta.
read that. Yeah.
And I can't wait to hear your feedback because it's so like
Yeah.
the it's our focus at the end of the day, but it really comes down to our self-image. Like how do you look at
Mhm.
yourself? It's like the perspective
Absolutely.
of how do you think about yourself when you're not thinking about how you think about yourself? Like what thought comes up then? And
Mm.
most of the time, 99% of the time it's negative. So we literally have to go out of our way to train it to be something positive.
Man, you're absolutely right, man. We're conditioned to think negative. Like we've it's like we're born into to consume fear and negativity. You know, I, I always said that I can have 100 comments of this positivity, and then
One.
one can say something that's so just negative, and even though you don't want to focus on it, it's like you still just focus on it, and next thing you know, it's like, okay, what am I doing? I could have focused on you got so much positive to focus on.
Ask question I ask every guest. It comes back to the unlearning aspect of things. And the question is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
Mm, that we're limited at all. That is someone else. Our fate is in someone else's hand. Like that's not true. Like we're the catalyst. We're the ones. We're the essence, the very essence of our life. We just can only sense it through these five senses, but there's so much more out there in this different spectrums of light, these different spectrums of understanding, these different spectrums of being. And if we just stop limiting ourselves through these five senses and really understand the greatness, the greatness of our being and the infinity of our essence, we need to come from that standpoint.
So true. So true. More than grateful for that perspective and for you coming on the show, man. All your links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show. More than
And
grateful
thanks for
for
the
you.
invite, brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.